Welcome to Super Squad D! Woohoo! Yippee! Starring Tyler Blood,
Yosef Carvin, featured guest is Pauline from Mario.
Super Squad D.
Oh my goodness. Apologies to everyone tuning in for our producer has an intern working with them that misfired on the opening song there for a little bit, so I'm sure it was real disappointing to have a glimpse of Trigun and then no Trigun and everything going on like that. So thank you for being patient with our new production intern here on Super Squad D. New year, new staff. Hey, that over there is the one and only Terry Bradshaw. Unbelievable. Good to have you.
And that right there is good old Snake Eyes.
Shouldn't be talking then. That's on me. I'm supposed to be silent. Unless I'm just the concept of rolling 2 ones in dice.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I don't know what character you're talking about. I'm just like the guy who constantly rolls double ones. That's what I was talking about.
All right, here we are. It's Super Squad D back again. Tyler is already hitting what appears to be... Hold that beverage up, please, sir. I want to know what that was.
Today's video is sponsored by Ice Drink. It's not nice if it's not ice. Ice Drink.
That looks like the most off-brand beverage I've ever seen in my entire life.
Ice Drink, because you're worth it. L'Oreal Ice Drink.
It's like, I don't even know how to describe that. It looks fake in all aspects of it.
It's actually just some red food coloring that I mixed in with water, and I made my own label because I can't afford fancy drinks, Joseph. It's a lot for pointing it out, jeez.
It's not even like one of those like flavor like Mio things that you pour into water. It's not even that. It's literally just food coloring because it's all you have around.
Food coloring.
I love it. I love it. Such good times. Hey, first stream of 2021, and we are inexplicably doing it on a Wednesday.
Yep, no reason, no rhyme or reason.
Nope, not at all. It was literally, we were going to do it this week. Something came up at work, and I was working late on Tuesday night, and we said, well, got to do one in January. Might as well just move it to Wednesday instead.
That's actually true.
That's it.
Actually,
So here we are. And we were thinking this would be a great opportunity to start off a little series that we're going to try to do here on the channel, where we come up with the definitive subjective ratings for superhero films.
Scientifically subjective is kind of our motto around here.
The best way. It's something we've been talking about for a little bit, Tyler. Explain a little bit of the thought process you felt like in trying to get a massive project like this going on the channel.
Well, you always see these guys talking about how the MCU is so much better than the DCEU, and that's exactly how they sound when they say it out loud.
Yeah. It's not mocking. That's not a mocking tone. We actually know someone who talks exactly like that, and he happens to be. Yeah, we happen to have a huge amount of respect for him and trust his opinion.
He's actually quite bright guy. He's actually a physicist, which is really interesting. But he's very hung up on the fact that the MCEU, that's right, I said it. He feels like that's better than the DCEU, and so I just said, you know what? Physicist friend who's absolutely real.
100%.
I tell you what, we're going to find out because I don't know. I think you're going to be surprised. I think the DCEU has a higher average rating than you think it does. And so we're going to dive in to a really long and detailed process, very scientific. We're using the scientific method all day. If I could remember what it was, I'd tell it to you right now, but I know we're using it. And we're going to figure out what the actual quantifiable scientific rating for each film is. We're going to get a running average. That means we're going to put all the averages together. We're going to send them on a race. They'll go next to each other.
That's the
and
science
whichever
behind
one
it.
wins, that's going to be the determining factor of the strongest multiverse movie.
Okay. Yeah, so that's 100% exactly what we're doing.
Yep.
And in the vein of science, we are being completely subjective about what we're discussing. And what we're going to do here is basically go through, and the scale that we're going with in general is to revisit especially the older films that have been out here, out for a little while that we might have forgotten some details of. And the mentality, at least I've been approaching it this way, is to just try to find out, rate my enjoyment of the movie.
Yes.
All right, not necessarily try to be like, is this a good movie? Because sometimes you have a movie that is honestly not that good, but it's enjoyable enough, so you're willing to let it slide. And so the factors going on in here is the enjoyment factor. Did we actually enjoy some of these movies more than we thought we did, or not enjoy them quite as much in light of some other movie stuff like that? And then, depending on how the DCEU, the MCEU goes, we're going to try to jump maybe into the X-Men EU and the Sony Spider-Man EU.
Because that X-Men EU is where I think it's going to get really interesting, especially when you compare those on average to some of these other films. We already got some great comments from the chat. We got David Codd, who's very excited to see science come back to the forefront. Hashtag science. And then Raleigh says MCU is greater than the DCU, and that's science done. I can only assume he's talking about the comics, though, because he put DCU and MCU, not MCEU and DCEU, which is very clearly the movieverse.
Obviously. And that's kind of I'm glad that Raleigh said that. I'm sorry that we're mispronouncing your name, Raleigh, but I'm very glad that Raleigh said that, because that's the general consensus, right? MCU is better because
everybody thinks that.
Exactly. And I think it's because the MCEU has not produced as many duds. And so it's not quite as on the forefront of our minds. We're not oh yeah, well they've been consistent and all of that. But I think I know for me, going back and rewatching things, there's a lot of Marvel movies I don't necessarily enjoy. And they're perfectly fine, but I don't find any enjoyment in it. And that's what I'm interested in getting into. But tonight we're going to start with the highly controversial.
Yeah, we are.
DECEUE.
Yep, and David brings up a good point right as we jump in. All of this is second place to the SWEU, which everyone knows is the Scarlet Witch EU.
Yep.
Which I think is because she can reality warp. So I'm assuming he's talking about a very specific reality in which she has created something that is superior to all the other EUs.
I think he's just talking about the show WandaVision. I haven't watched it yet, so I don't know how to rate it, but I'm sure, yeah, it's first place.
I won't spoil it for you, but don't waste your freaking time.
Because it's first place?
Because it's first place. Nailed it.
Yeah, I'm with you, though, actually, with the whole Fox thing. Let's just say, on the record, to start things off, out of DC, Marvel. Wait, do you have an intern over there too?
No, I have a stenographer over here. She's practicing. She practices at night.
Oh. Is it your daughter? Be honest. DC, Marvel, Sony, Fox, those four right there. Just kind of from what you vaguely remember, and having not approached it so scientifically quite yet, what do you think, on the record, before we get started, you are going to scientifically enjoy more out of those four?
Jeez. Okay,
and which do you think you're going to scientifically enjoy less?
Honestly, I think I'm going to enjoy. I think it's going to be MCU, DCU, MCEU, DCEU, Fox EU, Sony EU, Fox EU. That's what I think it's going to be. I think Fox EU is going to be the last. Sony EU is going to be the third. DCEU is going to be the second. And Marvel is going to be the first. It's kind of what my gut tells me. Mm-hmm. But I do feel like when we get into some of these films, I'm going to be like, oh, that one.
Yeah.
Interesting. So what about you? What do you think? Where's your ranking fall right now? And all, by the way, are below the SWEU.
Every single one of them. Yeah, exactly. So this is really just second through fifth place.
Second through fifth.
Obviously. If I had to guess, I would have to say probably I'm thinking the Sony Spider-Man films are going to collectively be highest on my list.
Ooh.
To be quite honest, mostly because there's a fewer amount of them.
Okay.
And also I feel like, and I just feel like I just kind of have enjoyed more of them. Like, you know, and we'll get into more detail, but I think that's going to be one of them. I think that's probably going to end up being surprisingly the top of my list just because I feel like there's less negative there. Beyond that, I'm going to guess it goes not real massively surprising, like MCU, DECEUE, and then the Fox X-Men disaster. I think it's going to be a firm last place.
Where is Elektra? Because is that in the Fox?
That's a good question.
Don't know where Elektra falls, because whatever has that has a very unfair advantage at being just superb.
Yeah,
because that is going to way bring their average up, like because Elektra's the greatest film that's ever been created.
And also, here's a question: where does that Windows notification sound? What universe does it fall into?
If I had to guess, I'd say it's the BGEU, which is of course the Bill Gates EU. That we live in because the COVID vaccine is spreading everywhere through our veins, and he's tracking everything we do. Like, I got the first dose of the COVID vaccine.
You got your microchip already? Good for you, man.
I'm not sure if I'm allowed to tell you this, but that noise came from me. that noise came from my body.
Well, I should let you know then, Tyler, that you clearly have a system update ready to install.
Okay, I guess when I go to sleep tonight and I plug myself in, I'll get it done. I'd love to know in the chat as we get ready to jump in,
yes,
or
please.
In the comments below, before we get going, what do you think your ranking is going to be out of those four things?
Yeah, please give us all four, because that is, I think that's important. We want to get not just looking at like the two major ones. Let's get all four in the rankings. Who's throwing that in the chat right there? Tyler, what you laughing at?
Raleigh threw some shade at me and said he finds it odd the only person that likes Electra doesn't know what studio put it out. Which I have no defense for, so I'm going to pretend like I didn't read it.
If anyone in the chat knows what studio put it out and what universe it should fall into, shout us out. We need that information.
That'd be great.
Oh, I love it. I love it so much. The SSDEU. Thank you, David Kai.
The
one and only. So we're going to start with DCEU. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through it chronological order. Not chronological. I said that earlier to you on the phone, too.
You did. That's true.
But we're going to go through. So David Codd says MCU, Sony, DCEU, and Foxmen is what he's predicting. So pretty solid. Flip-flopping off of my top two, but Raleigh thinks that Daredevil was Fox. We'll find that out at some point. So we're probably not going to try to dwell too much on like the details and specifics of each movie unless it feels like it really warrants a whole lot of discussion. But I also am perfectly open to like separating this into 2 episodes if need be. Like if we really get into it.
I don't see us finishing all the EUs. Mm-hmm. Certainly not the SSD, EWE, EU. Right. But we'll get as far as we can get, and then we can just pick it up next week.
Exactly. So DCEU 9 films. We might be able to knock it all out tonight. We might get through like 4 or 5 of them, and then have to save it for another stream. We'll just find out as we get into this. But let's jump into it with Man of Steel. Okay. First of all, let's pull up the old Rotten Tomatoes rating.
Okay, pull it up, man.
And what old RT, our close personal friend RT, the Rotten Tomatoes gave it was a 56 from the Tomatoes crew.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
What a joke.
So Man of Steel 56% on the tomato meter, but 75% on the audience score. So Tyler, tell me first of all, did you have like a particular scale that you were going with when you were evaluating this, or was it just like scale 1 to 10 and you were just picking a number?
Yeah, I kind of go 1 to 10.
What's your thought process in general in evaluating, I guess?
Sure. Well, this is the scientific method after all. So it's
Yes.
1 to 10,
Well, yeah.
and it's based off of the objective criteria of how much I enjoyed it, which is completely objective. So that's a hard number that I can't change even if I wanted to. Now, I will say this.
Mhm.
I just recently rewatched about half of the DCEU.
Yeah.
And that actually, all of my numbers on rewatch have gone up and they've changed. So that's just one thing to note that's interesting. Is when I originally watched it, I felt much different than I feel now after having watched.
Okay. Why do you think that is? Do you think it's just like time to let it sit and stew and like kind of get over the initial shock of it, or what?
That's certainly part of it, getting past the initial shock of it just being a little bit darker and a little bit grittier. And then I think more than anything, it's just coming to terms with what it is and what it's trying to be, and not comparing it to Marvel. Because I think when I originally saw the films, obviously I loved the MCU and I have a lot of love for it. And so I think I just wanted it to be that same mold. And when it didn't fit that, I just found it not enjoyable because I'd been so conditioned to like the Marvel movies and I love the formula.
Yeah.
And the formula is great and it works and I really do love it. But on rewatch, I think I've just more accepted it for what it is. As well as, I think when I was younger, I had a harder time differentiating and separating like the movie characters from their comic book counterparts. So if they were way different than their comic counterparts, and it was a different that I didn't necessarily understand or enjoy,
right,
then I was very upset about it. Because I'm like, this is not my character. This is not my Superman. And as I've gotten older, I've really come to a point where I can say, okay, this is one interpretation of Superman that exists among a myriad of comics and other things. Shout out to Oscar in the chat.
Oscar!
What's up, Oscar?
This is one very incredibly handsome iteration of Superman. I just had to pull up Henry Cavill one more time. Look at that man.
And
look at that chin.
Do you ever find...
It's unfair.
Do you find that the actors, if you really enjoy the actors as people, increases your enjoyability of a movie? Do you ever find that?
I don't know. I haven't thought about that much because, like, I there have been times in which like we all know, like Christian Bale's a jerk. So, like, there have been times in which I go into a movie just kind of being, knowing that that dude's a jerk, but also like I love Newsies. And it's one of the few musicals that I can tolerate. So, like, I don't know. I just don't know. That's a good question. I haven't given that much thought. I'll have to think about it. I'll have to seize the day sometime and give it some thought.
The reason that I ask is that Henry Cavill, since I saw the movie originally, completely grew on me as a person because I discovered that, one, he loves World of Warcraft. And in fact, when he got the call for this film, he muted Zack Snyder's call because he was raiding, which I just think is the greatest thing of all time. Like, Zack Snyder called. Or it's either him or his agent who's like, dude, you're Superman. And he's like, I'll deal with this later. I'm in the middle of a raid right now. I'll call whoever this is back. So, like, just... And
this was early 2010s. So, like, what X-Pac was that? Because I don't think it was probably one of the better ones, right?
No, it's probably like Cataclysm or something lame. And so, but he was into it, dude. And I love that and respect that. Like, that's great to me because it's just so relatable. Because I also got a call to be in a superhero film and muted the phone call. So I could totally relate to that. But I think, so in that, it made me enjoy him more. And I think I also like the film a little bit more. So the score is bogus, first of all. That score is egregiously bogus.
Not according to Raleigh. Not according to Raleigh in the chat.
No, it is egregiously bogus according to Raleigh.
It's true.
So that score's bad wrong according to Raleigh. It's way wronger, actually, than it is for me.
From it's your score, exactly. So, okay. So what is your score then, Tyler?
So for me, my score of this film is actually going to shock you, but it's actually 9 out of 10.
Okay. Yeah, that does shock me. Wow.
It's my favorite iteration of Superman. My favorite live action iteration of Superman. Now, there is complaints from Raleigh in the chat about Pa Kent, and I actually both agree and disagree with the fact that I agree Pa Kent was terrible as a person and a father, and nothing like he was in the comics. But for what they made him in the film, it actually makes so much sense why Superman turns out the way he does.
Okay.
Because of what a terrible father Pa Kent is and how much bad advice he gives him. I mean, at one point, he sits him down and he's like, whether for better or for worse, I don't know what's going to happen, but you're going to change the world, and that's a big responsibility, but it might be bad. If you show yourself, it's going to rock people's faith, and they may all hate you, and this life might be worse off if you reveal yourself. But, it's going to change everything. I'm like, well, yeah, no wonder the freaking kid didn't want to reveal himself.
Sure,
You scarred him, kid. You gave him no help or advice other than just, you're going to mess the world up.
Here's a question, Tyler. What if, just a crazy concept I just thought of, but what if Superman grew up to be evil? Someone should make a movie about that.
That'll never work.
Someone should make a movie about that.
Superman evil?
It's a crazy concept, I know. Unheard of.
Now that will never work. That will never sell.
All right, so I didn't expect a 9 out of 10 straight out the gate for you.
Out the gate. I waffled between an 8.5 and because I actually think the film in terms of quality is an 8.5, 8 to 8.5, but in terms of my enjoyment, it's a 9.
Okay. Interesting.
What about you? What you got? And I would love to know in the chat what you guys think.
Yeah, I'm looking at the chat real quick. First of all, Raleigh says, Alexa, movie mode. I don't think she heard me, so you're safe. But Raleigh is curious what your Electra score is for reference. But David Codd does say, he loved Man of Steel, but his primary knowledge of Supes at the time was through his ubiquitous pop culture possessed presence as opposed to from the comics, which is about the same situation I'm coming from as well. So that's why I wanted to point that out.
That's fair.
I'm not as much of a comics guy as you know. So that is one thing that plays into it a little bit outside of like, let's say I, used to love Spider-Man comics when I was younger. That was the only comics that like I really would get into. Not at the same level as you, but I would. Oh yeah, and David Cott also says that Man of Steel was the best live-action Dragon Ball Z movie.
100% agree with that.
Great line.
100%.
Great line. But so here's a couple things about my thought process and like when it comes to me watching movies. When I watch a movie, I don't often react to the movie immediately. I actually like to take about 24 to 48 hours before I formulate an actual opinion on a movie. So a lot of times if I go and I watch a movie and somebody's like, oh man, what'd you think of it? I'm like, I watched it. And then like, I've really, I have to think about it some. But because of that, I've noticed that my reaction to a lot of these movies didn't change much from when I saw them in the theaters.
Okay.
Years ago. The ones that I did see in the theaters, I didn't see them all. So I thought that was interesting. And I'm curious whether that's going to apply to the Marvel films as I rewatch those, or if it's just primarily DC. But I basically went through this. I went through it. First of all, I'm not going to do decimals in any of my ratings.
Okay, just like straight even numbers.
Straight even numbers, and I'm starting on a 5-point scale. When I evaluate, okay, so like when I watch the movie, I'm going to start with like a 1 is it was real bad. 2 was it was pretty bad. 3 was it's mediocre. 4 it's pretty good. 5 it was really good. And then once I decide if a movie fits in one of those areas, then I roughly double that to put it on a 10-point scale.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so I'm thinking like 9 and 10 is like this was great, loved it. I'm gonna go ahead and tell you right now, not a single one of these movies is gonna be a 10 probably. Because
me either. That's fair. Me either. None of these films are perfect.
I was talking with my wife before we went live, but a number 10 for me is like, a number 9 is the movie's on, and I'm like, oh, that movie's on. I think I'll watch it. A number 10 is, you know what? I think I'll watch this movie tonight. Like I want to specifically go back to that movie at some certain point. And there's only a few of those in my life, and then it goes down from there. So like 8 and 7 are pretty good. 6 and 5 are your mediocres, whether it was mediocre or whether it was mediocre, but I enjoyed it, and then down from there. So that's my rating scale.
If it's under 6, it's really pretty bad. If it's under 5, it's bad.
See, and so
we're on the same scale ish.
Ish. I feel like a lot of times people are like, I think a lot of times when people look at movies, it's like, if a movie has like 75% rating, they're like, oh, that's bad, because I think we think about ratings like we do grades in a classroom.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to avoid. I'm trying to actually give a lot of low scores if I thought that a movie was less than mediocre.
Like 75. So what you're saying is like 75 is something that you enjoyed but didn't love, but it was like decent to watch. Is that true?
Exactly. If I gave something a 7 or an 8, that's going to be, hey, that was pretty good. And like if a few things were different, I would have loved that movie,
Yeah. I'm with you, dude. We're on the same part.
Just trying to be transparent. So with that being said, Man of Steel for me is a 6. It was okay, and it was on the higher end of okay. Like it was okay, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It wasn't okay, and I'm ambivalent to its existence.
Yeah.
It was okay, and I enjoyed it, so I give it a 6. But I feel like it's just not quite at a 7 or 8. That was a pretty good movie level because of some of the flaws some people have already mentioned, but also because just some of the, like, I want to give it a 7 because of Amy Adams, and she was great. And I just love everything she does. But I think there's just so much about it that was like, okay, it could have been better. So I'm going to give it a 6, a healthy 6, and that's my rating for that. Okay, we good on that? It. And I hope, I hope the my rating scale makes a little sense or a bit of sense. I know I kind of talked a bit about setting that up.
Makes sense.
Yep. David Codd, big fan of it, fluctuates amongst the higher scores. Oscar says he liked it, and he liked Kevin Costner. Maybe he's not that strict as it has to be like the comics. I get that. I feel like if I was more connected to the comics, I'd have more of an opinion on Kevin Costner and his role there. But I got done watching it, and I was like, okay, it was okay, That's all I got. All right.
Yeah, Winter Soldier, Riley says, and we're going to get to the MCU, but that's maybe the objectively best.
Yeah, like spoiler alert, if I were to try to give a 10 to a movie, I would probably consider giving it to like that
Same
one
here.
or something like that.
Same here.
Yep. Yeah, and guys are shouting out Arrival. Arrival's fantastic. Arrival for me.
But this isn't the Alien CEU.
It's the Amy Adams extended cinematic universe.
The Amy Adams EU. Amy Adams CEU.
Arrival's a 10. Arrival's a movie I will purposefully go back and watch. All right.
I've never seen it.
Oh, you need to. In fact, end the stream.
All right. See you guys later.
I'm getting the producer has his finger on the button right now. He's going to kill it. So, Amy Adams is allowed to hijack all conversations. All right, the second movie, as far as release time, was one that I had avoided watching until this experiment. Let's pull up the Rotten Tomatoes score for Suicide Squad.
Is it really the second DC film released?
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm double checking.
Surely Batman vs. Superman came out first.
I don't think so. I'm looking at the release times here. They were both 2016. Look at that. They were both 2016. Yeah. So both 2016. So we'll go with this one first. Okay. To mix it up. But any surprise here on the Rotten Tomato? 26% from the tomatoes, 59% from the audience. Because again, I feel like audience, when they rate things, they tend to be like, like you would rate things in a school setting. So I feel like 59% is real bad from an audience review. Any surprise? Your thoughts?
Kevin Sason in the chat. What's up, Kev?
Oh, Kev's here. Nice. I hope it's okay that I just called you Kev. I realize that's a sensitive subject for a lot of Kevins out there, and I did not want to overstep.
Dude, you're gonna get named in that class action Kev suit. Lawsuit.
Oh no!
I'm getting locked in. Oh god, this is awful.
The Kev cinematic universe is out to get us now.
They are, bro. We're in trouble. Okay, so here's what I remember about this film. Spoilers abound. Well, I guess I say the word spoilers, but can you really spoil the fact that they give intros and backstories to all but one of the Suicide Squad members, and then he dies in the first 5 minutes? And you're like, gee, They spent a ton of time on backstory for everyone but this one character. Who could believe he was killed in the first 5 minutes?
Are you talking about the guy who tries to escape?
Slipknot, whatever his name.
He's only there to be a plot device to show that their heads will explode.
Literally there to be killed. And I feel like that one scene in sequence, super stylized backgrounds for all the characters, and then nothing for him, and then he's killed in the most predictable fashion, is absolutely indicative of the entire movie. Like that one scene can be extrapolated against the whole film for me. And I just left thinking, that was entertaining? Was it entertaining?
But was it?
So because of that, I'm going to actually give it one of the lowest scores I will probably give a film, and that's 5 out of 10. And the only reason I give it that high of a score is because Will Smith. I love Will Smith. I've been known to love Will Smith, and I think he completely carried that film with his charisma. You know, some people watch it and they're like, well, it's just clearly Will Smith. It's not Deadshot. And I'm like, right, you better be thankful that it was clearly Will Smith.
Right.
Because if it wasn't freaking clearly Will Smith, it would have been a trash tier film.
It would not have worked. It just would not have worked. Oh, man. I like that. I like it. So you gave it a 5? Is that what you said?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. See, that's interesting because, like, you said you give it a 5 and it's one of the lowest scores that you would possibly give.
Yeah, I actually quite enjoyed most films. That's the thing. Is like I have a low bar for enjoyment.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. No, I had not seen it before we started floating this idea, so I watched it at some point, like during quarantine last year, and it should probably be very telling that I just watched it in the past 12 months, and I barely remember plot details from it.
Yep.
Barely. I ended up giving it, and this was difficult because I wanted it to give it worse than this. I ended up giving it a 3, which is on my enjoyment scale, which is like the lower end of pretty bad. Because I feel like it wasn't necessarily like a colossal train wreck, and maybe I should have felt like it was. I think it benefits from being so forgettable that I can't rate it lower right now.
Well, you can't remember what you hated about it, so you give it a higher score, but that's only because it was so forgettable.
I was like, was it a 2? Like, I feel like it probably should have been a 2, but I don't remember. So I'm going to give it a 3 because I feel like it was pretty freaking bad. But I don't know if it was like I flat out hated it. It just was, I watched it and went, oh my gosh, that was bad. I don't want to live through that again.
Well, Raleigh says that the plot details were also written that way by the writers. So I think that's totally apt and fine. And, you know, this is good. I want to know what the chat thinks. What do you guys think in the chat or in the comments? What would you rate this film?
Right.
I'm interested to know on a 1 to 10 how you would feel about this film. Because so far, even though our scores are a little bit different because we enjoyed it at different levels, we both really found this film to be pretty bad. Neither one of us loved this film.
Yes. Yeah. And I wanted to rate it lower somehow. But yeah, give us a scale 1 to 10 rating. I know some of you threw out your personal Man of Steel 1 to 10 ratings earlier, but throw out those and your Suicide Squad 1 to 10 scales for sure. This was a movie that, Suicide Squad, that it got done and... it basically, like, my lasting impression of it was, what were they trying to do? You know? And
what was the point of this film?
Yeah, what was the point of this film? And so if the reaction is what were they trying to do, I feel like I can't quite give it a real bad, but I want it to be. Oh my gosh, the Omni Dog is here.
The chat Omni Dog's here, and he says,
oh my god.
It's chat Omni Dog, and he says, sucked out of 10. Yep.
So maybe I should have given it a 2, but I gave it a 3, and I feel like I need to stick with my ratings and not be influenced. So I'm going to stick with it, but it's real bad. It's real bad.
Okay, so I'm thinking, looking at the time as an interlude here, we will probably be able, maybe we'll be able to get through like the first 5 of the DCEU and the first 5 of the MCU. I don't know if we'll be able to do that tonight in one show, but maybe we can make it.
I hope we're not going to try to do that because I have not prepared my MCEU. I was just setting up the DC.
Fair enough. We'll just go through the DCEU then. Fair enough.
yeah, like the producer's pretty mad that we didn't communicate, giving me the eye right now. You know what I'm talking about. That we didn't communicate about this. No, we're sticking with just DCE, I think, for tonight, and we'll see if we can get through. Because there's only 9 DCEU films, and I feel like if we can knock it as much out as we can.
I believe we can.
That'd be good.
There's one we won't be able to finish because I haven't watched yet, but I'll watch it this week.
Okay,
ready.
Sounds good. So, Raleigh does mention, okay, yeah, Margot Robbie is the bright spot of the movie.
Yeah, she's great.
Whoever was the flag character, whatever his name is.
Will Smith.
No. Whoever was the military guy who's supposed to be watching them.
Was that Schwarzenegger's son or Clint Eastwood's son? That was Scott Eastwood, right?
I didn't think so. I hope not, because he was abysmal. Anyway, I want to stop talking about Suicide Squad. That's what I want to do with my life. And then we're going to jump into, okay, Batman versus Superman's next. Here comes the Rotten Tomatoes score.
Okay, but wait, is this, okay, so here's where I don't think this is a fair score.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is not the extended edition, and that's the one we're reviewing. I mean, we can go with it because it's all we have, but the Ultimate Edition was leagues better than the actual theatrical release.
Okay. Okay.
Maybe we should do a theatrical release enjoyment and then an Ultimate Edition enjoyment. Or have you seen the theatrical release? I can't remember.
Yeah, I'm almost positive we watched the theatrical release together, but I might be wrong on that.
Okay.
I'll look and see if they've got a Batman versus Superman like director's cut. They might. I'll do some research on that. Tell me a little bit about. So you want to specifically talk about the director's cut?
The films were not totally different, but the director's cut was so much better than the Ultimate Edition that I've never seen an extended edition film be that drastically different and better. Now, I'm not saying it's a great film by any stretch, but actually we're talking plot points that literally did not make sense in the theatrical version. Mm-hmm. Like motivations and actual just like scenes made no sense. And then they're fleshed out in the extended edition. If I was Zack Snyder, I'd be super pissed at the studio for trimming it the way they did and cutting it the way they did.
Yeah.
I don't know what role he played in that, if any, but like it's nearly unwatchable without the Ultimate Edition. The Ultimate Edition certainly adds a lot to it and makes the movie make more sense. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to like it, but it just means like, oh, okay, so Superman actually has a reason to go find Batman and to be mad at Batman. Like,
yeah, they did explain that a little bit more.
It made no sense in the original film.
There were some. I felt like when we were talking about this after like kind of a rewatch, there were some I felt like scenes that were in the theatrical that you forgot were in the theatrical and thought they were director's cut movies. I think that did happen, but yeah, no, I'm with you on that. Yeah, so Dawn of Justice was not getting much love here. A 28% on the tomato meter, 62 from the audience, so not much love. Yeah, I'm with you. Like, there obviously were improvements. Raleigh does ask how many MCU movies need recuts or re-releases to be good. I have one possible answer for that. I'll get to in a minute.
I have a few that could have used the Snyder Cut treatment.
Mm-hmm. So tell me, okay, what's your rating for Batman versus Superman after you've rewatched like director's cut or whatever it may be?
Ultimate Edition?
Yeah, Ultimate Edition.
This is
whatever it's called.
It's going to hurt a lot of people.
Okay.
I know that it is. Mm-hmm. But I have to go with my heart.
Mm-hmm. You're supposed to.
It's an 8 out of 10.
Okay. See, keep in mind, this is not necessary. This is how much you enjoyed it. This is a purely subjective scale, how much you enjoyed it. Yeah.
That's right. If I was to actually give the film an objective review, it would probably be somewhere around a 6.5 out of 10.
Right.
In terms of actual quality in film. But how much I personally found enjoyment out of, it was like an 8 out of 10 for me when I watched the Ultimate Edition. And maybe that's just because I was so shocked at all the stuff that actually suddenly made sense. I also found myself realizing that, like, I hated Jesse Eisenberg's performance. I hated it. But
if you want to talk about, do you go into certain actors' roles?
Yeah.
And like him more? He is an actor that if he is in a role, I'm going to instantly know I'm going to hate it. I do not like him. I cannot deal with him.
I can understand that because I've not seen anything that I've enjoyed him in, not a single film. And
I liked The Social Network, but it's because he's unlikable.
as I was watching the film, I found myself pausing it as I was rewatching it and thinking, how would Michael Rosenbaum say these words, but not give the performance like this? Like Michael Rosenbaum, who's famous for Lex Luthor in Smallville.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, yeah, the words actually could be Lex Luthor. Like this could make sense if an actor actually portrayed him in some way, anyway, other than Jesse Eisenberg portrayed him. Like literally any other way. So that definitely detracted. So you know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm going to drop that down to a 7 out of 10 because I forgot until we started talking how much I disliked him. 7.5 out of 10. We're going to cut it down the middle. 7.5 out of 10.
Okay. All right. So you're going to go 7.5. Honestly, I have been very open over the years that I did enjoy this movie a lot more than I thought I was going to. I think part of it was because the response had come out before I got a chance to see it of people going, wow, that movie was terrible. So I went into it expecting it, okay, this is going to be terrible. And then by the time it got done, I was like, oh, wow, I actually enjoyed that a little bit more than I thought I would. But rewatching it, I know y'all are all going to disagree with me, and I'm perfectly okay with that because there's not a single one of you that I care about. I'm kidding. But yeah, no, I 100% gave it an 8 as well, an 8 out of 10. It was a movie that I enjoyed. It is a movie that has so many obvious issues going on with it that there's no way I could give it, if I'm going back to my rating scale, which is a 9 would be, oh, it's on, I'm going to sit down and watch it. A 10 would be, I really want to go back and watch it. I can't give it either of those. At no point have I wanted to go back and really watch this movie. But I still enjoyed it. And a lot of it's because I thought that a lot of the tones of the first 2/3 of the movie, talking about the gravity and the seriousness of the ramifications of superheroes destroying cities and all of that, I thought was great. The opening sequence of Bruce Wayne watching the destruction of the city and seeing all the people, grieving loved ones that have been crushed, a child who's been orphaned, all of that. Like that opening sequence, I think is outstanding. It's when you get to Jesse Eisenberg, you get to Doomsday, that I'm like, that's terrible, and it completely ruined this movie from actually being a good movie.
I agree. I've said a few times about expectations and how they can make or break films, or just for personal enjoyment.
Sure.
I remember I went into Superman Returns with Brandon Routh as Superman, and everyone told me it was terrible and I was going to hate it. And I think because of that, I actually quite loved it and thought it was a wonderful film. I don't really remember anything about it, interestingly enough, other than when I came out, I really enjoyed it. And there was I remember one scene where the bullet's about to hit his eye. That's the only other thing I remember about it. But I think about Batman versus Superman. I think that if they had not put Wonder Woman in the trailers, and you didn't know Wonder Woman was in the film, I think the collective world would have lost their mind if she shows up as a surprise moment in the movie.
Yep.
I think it would have been received. I still think people would have hated Doomsday. I still think people would have hated Jesse Eisenberg.
As well they should. And there
would have been people who hated Batman killing, and there would have been people who hated the tone. But I do think that would have been a very large redeeming quality. But because we knew she was in the film, we found ourselves going, when's Wonder Woman going to show up?
When's she going to be here? Yeah.
I can't wait to see Wonder Woman. What's going on? So those expectations can really make or break a film. Chat Omnidog has some great comments in the chat.
Yeah.
He says that Michael Rosenbaum would have crushed it and that anybody would have been better than Jesse Eisenberg. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know anyone who enjoyed Jesse Eisenberg in that film. Genuinely, I don't know anyone who liked his performance.
No, not me either. So I can give it a higher rating than a lot of people would because at the end of the day, I enjoyed it in spite of it being objectively too flawed of a movie to be a good movie, If you took out the flaws, it's like, oh, this is actually really, really good and I enjoy it and all. But it just is Like the Doomsday part. Why would they do it? And essentially, most of the problem that comes out of this is, the studio deciding, hey, we need to market with Gal Gadot in there as Wonder Woman. We need to put that out there. And it'd be like, oh, well, it would be nice if that wasn't. No. It's public now. You see her. And like, the studio doing that, the studio needing to cut down on time. The studio botched this one really badly. And
yeah,
so
from start to finish, you're right.
I don't always fault the movie for a lot of these issues. I fault the studio. So that being said, yeah, it's a deeply, deeply flawed movie, but I was able to enjoy it. I was able to enjoy it in spite of that.
Yeah, we both quite enjoyed it. There you go. Interesting stuff we're discovering here under the surface.
Exactly. And a quick mention also, because this came out at about the same time as Captain America Civil War, which we'll talk about in the MCU section.
Yeah, that was the summer of superheroes fighting, and it was really a big comparison. And golly, I can't wait to talk about Civil War because it's such an interesting comparison to this film.
Yep.
The response of people, but then the response years later, I feel like in a lot of ways has flip-flopped on both to a degree.
Interesting. Yeah.
From what their initial theater response was.
Yep.
So,
and I point that out because, like, going back to what Raleigh was saying a bit ago, like, I think that's a Marvel movie that could have benefited from being written significantly differently, because the Civil War comic storyline is so powerful, and then the movie was just kind of all right. So, but anyway, that's a detailed discussion for another time. Yep.
So David's proving me different and proving me wrong and saying he thought Eisenberg was fine.
Okay.
And he says that Brandon Routh stopped the bullet with his vegan powers. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World reference. One of my top 5 favorite films of all time that Joseph absolutely is ambivalent to. And it hurts me to this day that he just doesn't really care about the film.
If I were to give it Scott Pilgrim vs. the World a rating on my 10-point scale, I'd give it a 7. It's pretty good.
Now you're just trying to hurt my feelings.
It's pretty good.
Really trying to hurt my feelings, man.
Pretty good. If it's on, I'm not really going to care to watch it, and I'm not going to go out of my way to watch it. All right. Yep. Let's move on to the next DC movie. We're coasting along. We're at kind of the halfway point, and I want to get to at least this one and the next one.
Yeah, that's fair. That sounds good. Yeah, this one and the next one, because there's some films.
Man, this is. And here is one thing. Omnidog, of course, mentioning like Gene Hackman playing Lex Luthor in the first movie. I have never seen the old Superman movies, and so I feel like I need to, almost primarily because of Gene Hackman.
Maybe we'll do that later this year. Mm-hmm. We'll do a review or a Does It Hold Up, part of our Does It Hold Up series that we have done one video of 3 years ago.
Yep.
Where we will rewatch those original films and then talk about if they hold up to today's standards.
Raleigh says Scott Pilgrim would have been better without Michael Cera. Raleigh, would Scott Pilgrim have been better if Jesse Eisenberg played Scott Pilgrim?
Oh, gosh.
Here's the Rotten Tomatoes score for the next DC movie to have released, Justice League. Obviously, with all the complaints and stuff about Batman vs. Superman, DC tried really hard to I don't know what they tried to do. They tried really hard to not make Batman versus Superman again when they made Justice League. And this was the peak. This was the pinnacle of what is the studio trying to do right here with Justice League. So here it is. It's Justice League.
It had a lot of issues because I know you guys will probably remember this, but Zack Snyder's tragically lost his son right as they were wrapping up filming. And so they had to bring in Joss Whedon to finish the film because he couldn't finish it. And he went to be with his family, which is totally understandable. So Joss Whedon came in hot off of Avengers Age of Ultron, which is another doozy we're going to get to when we talk about the MCU. But Joss Whedon, at that point in his career, had been notorious for just like being pissed in general about superhero films and the way things were going and the way he had been treated. And so he came into what Zack clearly had as a very distinct vision and then tried to put his own touches on it and taste on it, which in and of themselves may not have been bad. I don't know, but it clearly clashed with what the film did. You know, this, we didn't talk about it when we talked about Suicide Squad, but Suicide Squad, I don't know if you remember, also had this same problem where Suicide Squad, they released that awesome trailer. It was one of the greatest trailers that has ever come out. And then they showed the film to a test audience, and test audiences were like, not enough jokes, man. It's just not funny.
That's right. Not enough jokes.
And reshoots, and then they added jokes. So it's like literal like life and death, super like difficult moments. And they're like, did you guys walk into a bar? It was hilarious. They didn't see it coming. Just like the lamest jokes in the most inopportune times. I feel like that same thing happened here.
I think you're right.
With Justice League, where Joss Whedon came in, added stuff that was his style, but definitely didn't mesh. So I know that the whole collective geek community, whether or not you're excited about it, is going to watch the Snyder Cut because there's so much hype around it. There's like $50 million more money spent on it. Everyone's going to be interested to see what he can do and what his version of the film would have been. In fact, one of the most telling things, talking about studio interference, Zack Snyder had Superman in the black costume when he came back in this film.
Right.
And the studio was like, nope, Superman wears a red and blue costume. And he's like, no, it's a comic thing. Like, it's cool. And they're like, nope. And they're like, but it's a regeneration suit. Nope. Wear his suit. So they made him go.
He also had Superman coming back with a mustache. And they were like, nope, Superman clean shaven.
Clean shaven Superman. And Superman was like, I'm coming back with a mustache. And they're like, well, we'll see. When we get to post, we'll see. So, yeah, a lot of interference with the studio. But all that to say, my enjoyment level differs from my rating.
Sure.
My enjoyment level of this film, man, I really feel like it was a 5 out of 10. Like it was, I am not upset that I saw it. I didn't leave angry. But I have zero desire to ever watch that version again, for sure.
Yeah. So the tomato meter gave it a 40%, so like roughly a 4 out of 10. And the audience gave it. So it's got higher on Rotten Tomatoes than Batman versus Superman, which I think is interesting, because it's kind of difficult for me to differentiate. I mean, so much of like the tone and the writing and the style of Justice League it looks like, sounds like Batman versus Superman, but without any gravity to the plot. There's ramifications to it. It just is, here's Steppenwolf now.
I mean, he wasn't like, talk about what a mess of a film that like Darkseid wasn't even the villain.
Yep.
And it wasn't even building towards Darkseid. Like, you watch the film and you're like, oh, Darkseid must be coming?
Nope.
I guess not.
Which is amazing because, like, okay, Batman versus Superman, it has the clips in it where Batman's in this post-apocalyptic future. There's a giant, there's a giant Omega Darkseid symbol etched into the ground. Superman.
Like he's actually seeing the actual future.
The actual future.
Prevents.
And it's really, oddly enough, Injustice Gods Among Us inspired, and that Lois Lane dies and Superman, loses his mind. It's super fascinating. And you could see where they're trying to build up to Darkseid and all of that. And then Justice League happens and it's like, no. So that's 2 movies in which they should have been building to Darkseid and didn't. So, exactly. So,
but Raleigh makes a good point. Batfleck was one of the best parts of the DCEU.
Fully agree.
He was great.
No question.
He did not disappoint in this film either. I felt like he did as good of a job as anyone could have done in this film.
Yep. But I agree with you, and this was one that I was waffling a bit on whether I wanted it to call it a pretty bad movie or not. I ended up just saying it was a clean 5, just okay. This is an extremely middle of the pack movie, mostly because it doesn't really do anything super well or anything super badly. Batman versus Superman, I feel like, out of my enjoyment scale, did a lot of things well, but then it did a lot of things incredibly poorly, And this is a movie that doesn't. It doesn't do anything super well or anything super poorly, so I can't give it anything more than a mediocre rating. So,
chat, what say you? What is your rating on this? I'm very surprised so far and interested to see where we're going to go, because you and I actually, even though we have similar taste in films and humor, we don't always come away with the same thing when we watch a movie. But
Right.
we are doing 2 out of 3. Have we done 3 or 4? No, we've done 4.
We've done
film.
4. Mm-hmm.
We are like pretty close on 3 out of the 4 films in terms of what we've enjoyed and what we have not enjoyed.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
interesting.
exactly. It is interesting. In general, that's how it's been. And I don't know, it might be a little different with some of the other ones that we go through here.
Yeah, for sure. I think the MCU is actually the DCEU gets branded as the most controversial movie universe, but I think the big controversy is coming when we get to the MCU.
Just wait till I get my hands on your precious Marvel films. Okay, so 5s on Justice League for both of us, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do one more, and then maybe wrap it up on this discussion. Unless we
It sounds good.
there's Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Shazam, Birds of Prey, Wonder Woman 1984. So there's 5 more DCEU films.
Okay.
And
I got to watch Birds of Prey this week because I haven't seen it. I'll watch it
Okay.
this week. We'll be ready for that.
Yeah. So unless we felt like we could somehow power through 5 more movies in the space of time we got, we're not gonna do it. We're not gonna do it. So let's talk Wonder Woman, and then call it a night on this particular stream here. But all right, Rotten Tomatoes scores for Wonder Woman, not surprising, relatively high. 93% from the website itself, 84% from audience. I think it's interesting the audience gave it a little bit lower score. Maybe it's not interesting that the audience does it, because I feel like this was a movie that was getting review bombed a little bit by like
That's true. I forgot about that.
unnecessarily angry people. So
Yeah.
so Wonder Woman, generally well received.
Yeah. It actually is my favorite DCEU film.
Yeah.
Even to date, it's my favorite DCEU film. I think it is extremely strong narratively, cinematographically, and in just overall enjoyment. The only problem I had with Wonder Woman all
is what Raleigh's talking about in the chat.
Was the very end of the film. I'm not sure what he said. Oh yeah, the ending. Yeah, the very end of the film when it's like the magic power of love makes all the guys who literally mortally hate each other start hugging. Other than that, I thought it was a bombshell of a film. There was many memorable scenes, the most of which for me was No Man's Land, where they had been fighting for like months and nobody could cross it.
Chills.
And then she says, "I am no man," and she sheds the armor. She shows up in the armor. She walks across. It's such an incredible scene. Very
Chills.
powerful. Good ending. I will say, and I said it when the film came out, it is absolutely Captain America 4. Like 100%. It's the Chris goes down with the plane, saves the day, doesn't get to be with the woman he loves, set in the timepiece of World War. There's a big evil bad guy pushing the World War. Like it was very Captain America-esque, but it worked for me and I loved it. 9.5 out of 10.
Almost a perfect score. Look at that.
Almost a perfect
Look
score.
at
Not
that.
quite, but it was the best for me of the DCEU. And it's one that I would say, I want to watch that again. I want to put that in again and watch that.
Yeah. I totally understand that. Yeah, I agreed. It's very Captain America-esque, but Captain America, the original Captain America to me is kind of a somewhat forgettable film because it was like...
Well, we're going to fight when we get there, but go
Yeah,
on.
exactly. Because I feel like it only existed to set up the Avengers as a movie. So I felt like Wonder Woman was what Captain America, the movie, should have been. That's my assessment of it. Yeah, they're similar, but this is what it should have been. I don't necessarily have as much of an issue with the ending itself, but I do agree entirely with OmniDog in the chat that the fight itself took way too long. The fight with Ares took forever. I don't have a problem with Ares, the god of war, being defeated, so then like the soldiers stop fighting because war has been defeated. I think that concept kind of works. That doesn't bother me as much. But again, right there with you. Kind of surprising we've been agreeing so much, but this is 100% a 9 for me. This would be the honestly close to a 10.
Yeah.
I honestly don't mostly because I just don't know if I would necessarily like be in a mood to be like, yes, you know what, I need to watch Wonder Woman right now. But
Yeah.
movie was outstanding, and I think that the cultural significance of being able to do, you know, to actually just do a female hero and a female lead so well is fantastic. I think it's humbling to watch, and it also is just it's great because I watch it and I'm just like, yes, that's exactly like if I had a daughter, I'd want her to watch this movie type of thing. So, but yeah, so it's the best of the DCEU by far. It's the only one that I'm going to give a 9 to as well. Gal Gadot is just like a perfect human being, and we just kind of
she certainly feels perfect for this role. I mean,
we
there's
just have
a
to
few
do that.
characters, you know. Maybe we'll go back and talk. Sorry, I got a system update coming in. Maybe we'll go back and talk later about characters that cannot be replaced and characters we would replace in
That's not a
MCU
bad
and DCU. But she's a character. She's an actress who I do not think could be replaced as Wonder Woman.
You just can't.
I can't imagine anyone else as Wonder Woman. I can't imagine anybody else doing as good as her.
Yeah. Now Raleigh does mention just one word in the chat: airplane. And I do forget that the movie Airplane, starring Leslie Nielsen,
is in the
DCEU. Yeah. It's a 10. It's a perfect 10. So actually, I take it back. The highest, yes.
And Don't Call Me Shirley.
So 100%, yeah. So there it is. All right, quick recap. What did you rate those first movies? Man of Steel, Suicide Squad, Batman vs Superman, Justice League, Wonder Woman.
So Man of Steel, I gave a 9 out of 10. Suicide Squad, I gave a 5 out of 10. No,
I think you gave it a 5.
A 5 or 6. I think I gave it a 6.
Okay.
Out of 10.
Okay.
And then Batman vs Superman, I gave 7.5. I gave an 8 out of 10 originally. I gave an of enjoyment. I gave an 8 out of 10, and then I gave Justice League a 5 out of 10. That was the 5.
And then Wonder Woman was a 9.
And then Wonder Woman was a 9. We'll give it.
So the only the only like difference really that we have here is that I gave Man of Steel a much lower rating.
Yeah.
Because what you gave it, did you say you gave it a 9?
Yeah, I gave it a 9.
Yeah, so you gave it a 9. So I only gave it a 6. I gave Suicide Squad much lower. I gave it a 3.
Yeah.
But we were the same on Batman vs Superman. We were the same on Justice League. We were the same on Wonder Woman. So there you go. All right, that's our first 5. Yeah. I'm glad we're getting a chance to not just talk about these, but also talk a little bit about the Rotten Tomatoes scores and kind of get a reaction to some of those as well.
Yeah, some of those are shocking. I love seeing some of the critic scores and the audience scores years later. So it's good stuff. Also, I should ask the stenographer to read back the scores.
Right. Why am I asking you? Just look.
She's been waiting this whole time to read anything back. We haven't called on her.
She's storming out of the room now. She's so mad that she did her entire job and you just said no.
I just ruined it for her. So thanks to the chat for coming out and hanging out. We're going to be doing this for the next few weeks, going through the DC and the MCU and then the Fox and the Sonyverse, and we're going to be discovering what we liked best on average, which I think is going to be really interesting and enlightening. I really appreciate all the comments in the chat. It was a whole bunch of fun. We have made it our goal this year to resurrect the channel and to actually put out videos on a more timely basis. So we've got a lot of stuff coming down the pipeline.
I just want to go on record as saying that I never stopped putting out videos. The problem is I only release videos that nobody wants to watch. So that's something.
You release super high quality videos one every 6 months.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, hey, if you want to tune in for a 35 to 40 minute long, needlessly detailed video, I got you covered.
But we got some stuff. We got a toy hunt. We're going to be doing live shows. Included with the live shows, we're going to start back our giveaways at some point, which we really enjoy doing.
Yep.
Have a lot of fun doing that, giving away gift cards and books and stuff like
all
that.
Good stuff.
Next week we're going to.
Our commitment is bare minimum a live show every month because our schedules get mixed up, all that sort of stuff. But live show every month, trying to do it on a more weekly basis. The best way that you can keep up with this is that we are in the process of trying to motivate ourselves. Going to be doing a little bit more announcements and stuff on like Instagram and Facebook. So like us on those pages. Super Squad D live on Instagram, and I think on Facebook. Then the Facebook page is the same name. So look us up there because we're going to do a better job of posting, hey, we're going live this Tuesday, that sort of stuff.
Absolutely. And Oscar, no SSD points don't expire.
Never.
And what's up, Omar?
Omar! Yes!
Toy discussions will happen, my friend. Don't
Mm-hmm.
you worry. In fact, I got a very special video planned for Toy Tuesday coming up next Tuesday. You're going to like it. I'll give you a hint. It's has something to do with my hauls from January, my entire toy haul from January. You know, now that I say it out loud, that might be more than a hint. It might just be the title of the video. I think I may have given away too much. I don't think I really know how to do hints, turns out.
Turns out.
Try to read between the lines of what I'm saying, though. That's coming on Tuesday. And we got some good stuff coming down the chat. We got tomorrow. Tomorrow, the next day, we'll be posting my top 5 best books that I read last year. Comics, of course. No one reads books with words anymore. And, of course, as always, we got the top 5 Spider-Man videos.
Top 5 Spider-Man costumes coming up.
It's on the way.
I mean, quick spoiler here. Will this Spider-Man costume be featured? Let's find out. I don't know. Will it? Will this Spider-Man costume be featured on the top 5 videos? Will it?
I hate everything about you sometimes. Everything about you.
Oh, man. This has been Super Squad D, where the D clearly stands for disappointment. Yep, more content coming soon. Pay attention to our social media so we can keep you updated on when we are going live. Bare minimum once a month because we need to be better at that, but trying to get back on a semi-weekly schedule for sure. Yeah, that's about it. Tomorrow actually is when I'm going to release the first 7 minutes of my next needlessly long video essay.
Yeah.
So
7 minutes of a good video.
7 minutes of mediocre video. I would rate this video essay a clean 5 on my scale.
It can't be true.
It is true. It is true. All right. Well, as always, that right over there is newly sworn in President Joe Biden.
And that is Vice President Miss Harris.
And we will catch you next time.
Adios.